Feliz jueves. Soy Josué con En la Pista Equivocada y hoy vamos a beber un poquito de tequila. I guess we should do this in English. Happy Thursday, everybody. Josh here with On the Wrong Lead. Somebody had said that I was too quiet the last couple of streams and things, so I figured, we would come in with a bang. Speaking of coming in with a bang, of course, I would have to bring in none other than Mr. Caleb Knight. Caleb, back from Japan. I have to ask, what was your favorite food you had in Japan? Because I don't know if we talked too much about the food. Actually, I think you complained that you kind of missed pizza.
Yeah, so the food in Japan it was so good. Everything I had was good. My favorite, I thought it would be the sushi, which was admittedly good, but surprisingly, I think it was actually the ramen.
Nice.
The pork broth ramen, the tonkatsu, I think it's called, was phenomenal. So good. But I will say that after about 9 days of having raw fish for breakfast and everything with rice or made from rice, it was nice to come back and get bacon and eggs in the States.
That's probably next year sometime. I think my wife and I are planning on going over to Japan. So the thing I'm probably most excited about is the food, and like a lot of it would be that. Yeah, and Charles is mentioning that it is Ash Wednesday. Obviously, everyone got their punchkis yesterday. Maybe that's a Chicago thing, but Rare Wednesday stream. Yep, we're streaming on a Wednesday. The nice thing about Fairgrounds and Louisiana racing in general is they don't wait till the last minute to draw. They draw way ahead of time. And one person I know who appreciates it, because this man loves to prepare. And if he could, he would probably download PPs 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks in advance. Mr. Mark Capitan, how are you doing, Mark?
Hey, good, man. Good. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. Coming in, trying to be louder, apparently. But yeah, those of you watching live, just let us know how the levels are. I had some weird. I basically had to reinstall some stuff on my side a couple weeks ago. I had an update, and when that happens, inputs get messed up. All kinds of things end up happening. So we'll see how this goes here. But the duality of man was definitely on display in our private chat shortly before stream, where Caleb exclaimed, what did you say? Oh, this is just a great card. This is a really good card.
I thought we're covering the late pick 5, so I didn't look at the early late races, but I thought the late races 10 through 14 were, that's a really nice betting sequence.
Mark, what was your response?
It was not that. No, I mean, I think it's a fine sequence. I just think there's a chance that it kind of chalks out. Like, I think some of the likely horses are just really likely. I could see a case where you get 3 or 4 favorites winning this, and it really doesn't pay a ton. There's always, chance for upside surprise. A lot of lightly raced 3-year-olds, but it just felt like it. I don't know. Felt pretty logical.
So yeah, that makes me wonder if maybe I'm just a little. Rusty from being out of the area for quite a while. Because there's a few races where, I don't know that I know who the favorite's going to be. I don't have morning lines. I don't know if they're out yet or not. But or the horses that I think may be the favorite, are those that are going to take it off of name recognition, not necessarily performance or recent performance. So I thought there was some value, but it'll be curious to see how the lines shake out.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I'm again, I'm big field, so you're going to get some prices no matter what, just on field size, which is a nice thing to have this time of year. Judging by some of the other racing products that are out there, and maybe there's value to be had. Maybe I'm just leaning in and thinking certain horses are going to take a ton of money, and they won't, and it'll pay okay. So, yeah, we'll see.
I do appreciate that PDT is on stream when I have a nice bottle of Fortaleza Reposado here. So
If I knew
shout
PDT
it.
would be on stream, I'd have got my Cleveland Browns bottle.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that makes you even last year on bottle bets, I
It
believe.
does. It gets me back to you.
I got you back to even. So, but yeah, no, I looked at this card or this is the sequence rather. I think I was pretty skinny early, and I think I ended up going a little bit wider late. I think in the last two races, I think there are a couple of different ways you could go, but I could maybe see the early being a little bit chalkier here. But let's go ahead and let's get this going here. So we got race 10 here. It's going to be 100K stakes. We'll be going a mile and 16th on the luscious Fairgrounds turf, which is just, I don't know, man. The last couple of years, that turf's been wonky. I think I remember last year there was a period of time where you wanted to be on the outside rail coming down because it was just, I don't know. Churchill Downs and turf courses are just not having a great couple years. And the one turf course that hasn't had a problem, they fired the turf guy. So Colonial Downs, that happened obviously last year. I think we talked about it briefly. But yeah, they're not necessarily having the best of luck here with the turf. But I went an odd direction in this race, or at least odd in. I think this horse is very logical. This horse makes a ton of sense, but if you kind of look at maybe a couple of the things around it, you're kind of like, maybe normally you'd have some question marks here, but I have a lone A in this spot, and I went with the 5 Spirit and Glory here. I think you look at a horse that has not necessarily been running in the greatest of turf. I guess. I mean, he went over to Del Mar to try and win a race. Finished second in the closing remarks. Who came out and won another race after that. Has been on a bit of a layoff, and before that was plying his trade at Monmouth and Aqueduct. So kind of been, I think, on the softer side of the turf scene, but it doesn't really seem like there's very many world beaters in here. You get Flavian Pratt aboard, and if there's one thing I can definitely say, I mean, you guys know how much I love Flavian Pratt, which is about as much as doing my taxes. But when you look at the jockey colony at Fairgrounds, the nicest thing I could probably say is it might be the worst collection of jockeys outside of, like, I don't know, maybe Golden Gate Fields. I don't know. Like, it's not good. And I think you see some, if you watch enough Fairgrounds, you see some just head scratching stuff kind of often. So I think when you get some of these bigger name jocks to come in, you got to look where they're going. You get Flavian aboard here, and I think it makes sense. You got a horse coming from off the pace, and I think he's that's just how he likes to ride. He likes to relax the horse and make that run. So Spirit and Glory is kind of where I landed here. Lone A, didn't really use anybody else. But Mark, where did you kind of land?
No, I also had a lone A in this spot, but I'm surprised at the lone A that you had, because I know I'm not supposed to call them Josh horses anymore, but I thought the 8 horse Not So Close was just really a standout in this field. She should get to the front end in here, and any of her last 3 turf tries, at least on time form figures, are 8 or 10 points faster than the second fastest horse in the race. I just think she makes the lead. She's been running probably versus better horses at places like Keeneland and Saratoga. And, okay, it's not class relief on paper, but a little bit of probably stealth class relief, just given the company. The only downside I have with her is the Cassie barn has been quite cold. They're over 16, but just have 3 seconds, so it's not like they haven't been firing at all. And his go-to Jock Santana, sticks here, and they're 34% together last year. So I thought Not So Close was just kind of the horse to beat here. And I see. Isn't she like a 3 cherry special? I mean,
that's definitely a 3 cherry horse there. But Mark, I'd be remiss if I didn't think that the only reason that you picked this horse is because you saw who owns it.
I mean, no, I did not actually even notice that until you mentioned it. But that's another upside.
Caleb, where did you land here?
Yeah, so I think you guys have covered. I had 3 horses that I liked about equally, 2 of which you've already covered between Spirit and Glory and then Not So Close. The other one is who I assume will be co-favorite or maybe second choice, which is the number 3, Creative Cairo. I think all 3 of those horses, the 3, 5, and 8, in my mind are kind of similar. I mean, not necessarily on run style, because obviously the 8 is the 3 cherry horse. There does seem like there's quite a bit of speed signed on, at least at first blush. It seems like a horse like the 12 wants to go, the 8 wants to go, the 10 wants to go, potentially the 13. So I'm a little nervous about that, coupled with Norm Cassie's barn being cold. But I do like the horse for all the reasons that Mark already talked about. Josh, I'm with you on the 5 as well. So I guess the 3, Creative Cairo, ran 2 good races in her last 2 races here at the Fairgrounds, or really 3 good races if you go back, all the way to that race where she was just way too far back at the break and then, got up for 4th late. She just seems to be improving. Her, figures put her squarely in the mix for this. I wouldn't want to take a crazy short price on her because I do think there are a couple of other horses in this race that I think are going to be in the 8-1 to 12-1 range that I think are in with a pretty big shot. So I would really be hesitant to take 5-2 on anybody in this field. But I do think that the 3, 5, and 8 are probably your 3 most likely winners.
Well, yeah. Why don't you toss out some of those horses that you kind of like at a little bit longer price? You think?
Yeah, I'll throw out a couple. One that I imagine is also on Mark's radar would be the number 11 Girl Named Charlie. This is a classic horse for course kind of angle here. Just seems to be a different filly at Fairgrounds relative to other tracks. She's a perfect 3 for 3 over the turf here. She's only a 4-year-old, and given that it's February, she's a relatively young 4-year-old going up against a lot of 5 and 6-year-old mares in this field. So I think she probably has a little more upside. She needs to find a little bit more, I think, to beat a field like this, but she certainly has a right to, making her second start off the layoff and getting back to the Fairgrounds where she's done her best work. So I think she makes some sense in here. I kind of like also another Mark horse potentially, the number 1, Watch This Birdie. Yeah, I see him laughing. This is a vintage Mark angle, so I should have left this one for him, but does seem to be a bit of an every other race kind of a horse where she'll win a race, then kind of still show up, but not necessarily win. Just seen another 4-year-old against some older fillies and mares in here, so it seems like she's one that still has some upside and has been kind of on that every other race pattern. And then I guess I had to mention one more. It would be the 6, Flatter Me Silly. This is probably not a Mark horse, but one that I think has, on time form anyway, improved in each of her last 4 turf starts, dating all the way back to January of last year. Something clearly went a little bit wrong in July because she was given a lot of time off, and now comes back in here, all off of the 8-ish month layoff, 7-month layoff in here. So it's a tough spot to make your return, but I do think she's one that was trending in the right direction prior to that layoff. And her figures from those last couple do put her in the mix here. I think she'll be probably close to 20-1 in this field. So she's one that I think is likely to get overlooked. Would certainly be more of like a B or C type, but one that I think is in with a shot.
Yeah, I found it kind of funny that I had 2 Bs written down, and Caleb calls them both out as Mark. So, you're spot on. Those were for exactly the reasons you mentioned.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I just kind of, I was trying to just, I don't know, just be skinny here. I did kind of have the same thought on the pace scenario that you did, Caleb. Just upon look, you see a couple of E8s in here. You see an E6. You got an EP7. So, especially for a turf race, that does seem to be a little bit more pace than maybe you normally get. So, yeah, I did kind of try and look elsewhere. The only knock I really had, I looked at Creative Cairo for a bit, and maybe I was just trying to, differentiate between the 3 and the 5 a little bit, and so I kind of went with the 5. And class doesn't matter until it does, and really the tiebreaker I think between these two horses for me just seemed to be that it seemed like the 5 at least has been in tougher spots as of late. In second in that yellow ribbon, which I know West Coast turf races, even though it's got that G2 written next to it, is probably at least down more closer to a G3. But Closing Remarks is a nice horse, and obviously won another one after that, and it just missed by a neck there. So I thought that maybe the 5 has just been in slightly tougher company, having running a couple of graded stakes in the last couple of races, and it just really hasn't been outside of stakes company for a while. So, but anything else on this race? After you stole Mark's thunder.
No, not for me. I stole Mark's thunder.
Let's take a look real quick in chat. We see anything? Charles says he's going to take the horse with the most lines in the Brisnet comment section with no negative comments, which I think sometimes is tough to find at a place like Fairgrounds. But
I guess one horse that I think will take money that I'm not interested in is the number 13, Join the Dance. This horse, I think, with Rosario, is going to take some money. Hasn't been able to beat Creative Cairo in her last 2, despite getting first jump last time out. Bad post here today. This one's not for me. I do expect this horse to be probably in the 5-1 ballpark. I mean, either of you two interested in that horse?
Not me.
Nope, not at all.
Not a Mark horse, apparently.
Not a Mark horse. Shocker.
All right. Race 11, the Mine Shaft. It's a grade 3 here, going to mile 16th on the main track. I was also pretty skinny in this race. I did see Money Supply looks to be double entered in this race and the race after this. I'm guessing that if we're on the turf, Money Supply is going to stay here. It's probably entered kind of as an AE type in the next one, unless I totally misread that?
No, you're right.
No, okay.
Money Supply is also really good on the turf, though. So I think does Money Supply have like 3 wins on the turf?
No, Money Supply has never run on the turf. I think you're thinking of a different horse.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking of a different horse. I apologize.
But Mark, where did you land here?
I mean, again, nothing really super creative here. I thought that you can make a pretty good argument that Best Actor could be, a single in here. One of the last 2, figures came back really stout from both of those. A bit of an every other pattern as well. And even though the horses won the last 2, this is the every. So, I would expect wouldn't shock me with another little step forward here for this one. Obviously, it's a Cox horse with Flavian Pratt up. I expect that Best Actor is going to take a ton of money in here and be darn short. So I thought Best Actor was, I was debating between a lone A, and I also added Gasoline as an A. That was my other A in here. Just from the fact that, Todd Pletcher seems to be a trainer, and maybe I'm misremembering. I could pull the stat up, but I remember him shipping into the Fairgrounds and kind of stealing stakes races this time of year with some of his better horses. This is one that got a prep, in the Harlan's Holiday. I don't know what really happened, but this seems like a softer race probably than that. I like the fact that Johnny V comes in to pick up the Pletcher Mountain, and I thought Gasoline fits if he can find some of that two or three back form. So ended up with Best Actor and Gasoline on top, which is obviously nothing creative in here. Probably going to be your first and third choice, I would imagine.
Caleb?
Yeah, so this is one of the races that I kind of alluded to earlier. Is I'm just not sure how they're going to bet it. And primarily, my uncertainty is how they're going to bet horses like Gasoline or Smile Happy. If Smile Happy gets back to the races he was running in the summer of last year, he's going to be awful tough for this field to beat. But his last race in Louisiana was pretty terrible. I mean, he ran last by 10 lengths, was never really involved in the race for more than half a mile. And yeah, it was his first start in a layoff, for a long layoff, and maybe he just needed the race. But I think you're going to be taking a pretty short price on a horse that is coming off of a stinker. And the same argument kind of applies to Gasoline, with perhaps even more question marks, who is coming off of a real stinker in the Harlan's Holiday and kind of a okay race, in the Clark. I know the figure came back fast, but I'm a little bit skeptical of that. But it was in good form prior to that. Again, the same argument kind of applies. So I'm not really sure how the public's going to bet those two. To me, they're both price dependent B type plays, or if they're going to be 2-1, 3-1, I probably just don't need them. I do agree with Mark that Best Actor is the horse to beat, and I think the most likely winner of this race. Just seems to have a bit of a tactical advantage over most of this field. Is one of the few horses that comes in with good form and really not a ton of question marks surrounding him. Coming in off 2 wins, all gate to wire, handles the distance just fine. So I think Best Actor is the horse to beat. I think he probably will end up being your favorite, but I don't know if he's going to be an overwhelming favorite again, because I think it just depends on the kind of money that Smile Happy and Gasoline take. So that's kind of my shared take. The only other horse I sort of gave a glance to was Notary, who I thought maybe can, get into the exotics at what should be a big number. But to me, Best Actor is probably going to be a single A.
Yeah, Best Actor over under 2-1. I mean, I was trying to figure out what made sense for him, and my thought is he maybe shorter than 2-1. I could see him being 7-5 range, quite honestly, in this field. Just connections and all.
I think he's going to be 9-5, maybe 2-1. I think that is a good line. I think 9-5 to 2-1. They seem to bet this horse a lot more than I think he should be. I mean, you look at his last 2; he was odds on, against a couple of decent horses like Injunction, and then ran back in New York against, Sheriff Bianco and a few others, and was just crushed on the board. So people like to bet this horse. So I'd be inclined to take the under, but I think 2-1's about fair.
Yeah, I love Best Actor. Not any different than you guys. I think the only place that we kind of differ is I really like Money Supply in this spot, and I think I have Money Supply as a B. I'm guessing we'll get a little bit of a price, but I mean this horse is coming in off 4 straight wins, has beat a horse like Notary last time out, and I was kind of just looking for, I don't know, like a new shooter type. Like you see a couple of these horses, like Happy American, right? We've seen this horse plenty. I think we know what this horse is. I mean, won to Louisiana, a couple of was it the last year, but hasn't strung together a win since then. So you have a couple of these horses that I think are bouncing in and out of stakes races. So I'm kind of taking the 2 horses that obviously Best Actor ran one of Smarty Jones last year, but it's kind of been running in that optional claiming allowance company. It's got 2 really nice wins there. And then I think Money Supply, another one, right, has been bouncing between Churchill, Fairgrounds, Oak Lawn. It's got 3 wins at 3 different tracks there, and then obviously had another win at Churchill. So I kind of like him here coming back to the dirt, coming back to a fast dirt, hopefully, where it doesn't really matter. It seems like he's won on both surfaces there, but yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of looking at horses that I don't know. They're just kind of, I guess, a little bit newer to here, but yeah, I think Best Actor is going to be short price, hard to beat. I think your 2-1 line was probably right. We're going to get somewhere around there. But hey, maybe these other horses get beat, like you said, the Gasoline or even Run Happy. So yeah, Greg's saying we might need a new face.
So with Money Supply, he's kind of a weird horse, and I didn't quite know what to do with him. But just the fact of Chad Brown couldn't figure out what to do with this horse, puts him in for a tag. He gets taken by Joe Sharp, and it seems like Joe's kind of got some semblance of form going with him. But I don't know. There's got to be some story or something weird there that Chad throws him in for a tag and lets him go. Just weird. I don't know. It seems like an odd situation.
Yeah, I that was my reservation about him as well. It's just that he's a bit of an odd horse. I mean, not a gelding, so still a horse at 5 years old. Chad kind of gave up on him. But an excellent claim for Joe Sharp. I mean, rattled off
Oh
four
yeah.
consecutive wins, including a $127,000 allowance at Churchill. Yeah, but very carefully managed, I think. I mean, if you look at even after winning that big N1X allowance, his next start is in a starter allowance for 35,000. So just very curiously managed. I'm not convinced he's this good, but I think he's been an excellent claim, and we'll see.
Yeah, this always, I guess, to me, and not bashing your horse too much, Josh. It just felt like they're taking a shot here, and I have a feeling he'll be class exposed, but I've been wrong before, so
Many times.
quite often actually.
Let's move on. Race 12 here. The Fairgrounds Stakes going a mile in the eighth here, presented by Horse Racing Nation. Mile and eighth here on the turf, and this was a race where I was pretty skinny. And Mark, I know you kind of chastised me a little bit before by not taking the Josh horse. Well, my friend, I'm taking a Josh horse in this race. We're gonna take number 3 here, Strong Quality. Mark Cassie, who is obviously not a trainer that I bet often, but the Mark Cassie horse with Flo Giroux aboard. I mean, if Flo can win with this horse on the lead, then this horse has got some talent. And this horse has got one place. He's going to go. He's going to get right there on the lead. It just does not seem like there's a ton of speed here. So. Very simple. Josh Angle, Josh C E8, Josh Bet E8. But I don't know. I'm curious to see where you guys went. Caleb, what did you kind of see here?
I think Strong Quality is a really tough call for me in this race. I guess the first question is he the favorite in this field? In my mind, he probably.
I think so.
Him or Gigante sort of feel like the two that I would consider. There's a lot of ways you could go, but I would think that Strong Quality is your favorite because I think people will see the pace advantage the same way that Josh does, and I think he's right. I do think that he projects to sit a pretty nice trip against this field. I think that my main question with Strong Quality is just that he had a very cushy trip last out. He had a length and a half cushion, loose on the lead, doing what he does best, going a mile and a 16th, and he barely held off Beatbox. I don't personally think all that much of Beatbox. So for me, that makes it a little bit tough to think now stretching out an extra 16th of a mile. Does that play out any differently? Does Beatbox get there? Does Beatbox try to go? Does Sias with a cleaner break get Rising Empire out a little bit quicker? I don't know. But I do think that Strong Quality does make sense. I'm not going to beat Josh up for that. I'm just kind of throwing out some of the questions I have over a horse like this at what I presume is going to be a somewhat of a short price. So I think he's very usable for sure. But my top pick was the other horse that I mentioned, the number 11 Gigante. I thought he ran a really nice race in the wood chipper, which is always a fun race toward the end of the year at Fairgrounds. Had a bit of trouble where he was kind of pinched at the break and then shuffled back a little bit and was still able to get up to beat a really nice Cherie DeVaux horse in Northern Invader. That horse, he actually beat that horse twice, although once was off the turf. So I think this is a horse that's just really in good form right now, rattling off 2 wins. Has a win here at the Fairgrounds, basically, at this trip or similar anyway. So also one that needs to see out the extra furlong compared to what he's been doing. But given the way he's finished off his last few races, I'm not too concerned about that. So I think Gigante would be my top pick while also, giving a lot of respect to Strong Quality.
Yeah, we're all kind of seeing this race somewhat similar, but I think this is one of those races. I know Caleb kind of alluded to this earlier, where it depends how they bet this race. And to what Caleb said, I could see this going a bunch of different ways. I could see Strong Quality taking a ton of money and being very short, but I can also see that world where Gigante is also your favorite. I think both of them make a ton of sense in here. Those I had those two both as A's on my sheet, and the third horse that I had as an A was the 2 horse Chasing the Crown from Mike Maker. This is a horse that arguably has a bit of the hangs, but does have a win at the Fairgrounds circuit, and does have a win go on this trip. Or well, I guess close to this trip. I thought the figures fit pretty well here, and if you believe that sort of that last out figure, the first start of the 5-year-old campaign seems like the off for the winter or off for the fall is cause us to take a bit of a step forward if that figure is legit, or maybe this is just a horse that really likes this fairground circuit. So I thought Chasing the Crown was a major player in here, and just kind of an interesting other horse. Had a few others that I liked in here, but I didn't know if Caleb also had some price plays, considering he knows how I think apparently.
Only one, and I'm pretty confident it's. I don't think you'll have this horse. The only other price play, I do like your two, by the way, Mark, just to kind of close the loop there. It might be a bit of a money burner, but this is a tougher spot, so I think you'll get a price that makes the horse worth a flyer. The other horse I like that I think is going to be a pretty more of a square price is actually the number 5, Palazzi. This is a horse that I just wonder if maybe hasn't been campaigned in the exact right spots. I know the horse does have a wing going 1.25 miles, but has never really struck me as a horse that wants to go those 1.5 miles, quarter distances. Does put in a late run, but just doesn't, kind of flattens out, never really seems to get there. And has also caught either yielding turf or synthetic in the last handful of starts. But if you go back to some of the, more mile to 1.125, firm turf or good turf races, the horse looks pretty good. So to me, I think this is one that is going to be a pretty huge price, I think, but has been keeping good company up there at Woodbine. I mean, ran in a grade 1 in the tail part of last year to Nation's Pride. Has, beaten horses like, I can't really use Rock Emperor to make my argument, but has beaten a couple of decent horses. And just a horse that I think will be 15-1 in this field that, it isn't without hope, if some of the major players just don't fire.
Yeah, I don't hate that pick at all. I mean, I thought this was one of those races. If you want to make a case, there's certain races where you look at it and you're like, the gap between the best horse in the race and the worst horse in the race is not huge. And this is just a race I think you could spread out. Don't hate Palazzi in here. I could also make a case for horses like a Camp Hope or a Harlan's Estate, or even Beatbox. So I there's a lot of ways you could go here, but. I think I want to, if I'm going to spread other places, I would rather spread in the next 2 races. So, I'll kind of keep it. I realize I have 3 A's, so that is fairly spready. But I'd rather have more coverage in the next couple.
Dude, Caleb, was Dyna Drive the horse that we hit pretty big on at price? Yeah.
I've made a lot of money with Dyna Drive.
Yeah, and he's running at Houston. We can't even bet it. He went off at 6-1.
Oh my god!
Goodness gracious!
3.5 too.
Yeah, good.
Criminal.
Anything else you want to talk about in this race?
No, that was it for me. You said you're just going single A with strong quality. Josh.
Yeah, I'm going.
Prices you were looking at, or is it?
Yeah, no. I kind of felt pretty good about strong quality, and I guess looking at the rest of the field, I think you're right. He's going to be pretty short here. Obviously, I think this would have been a race that we would have seen 2 Emmys in and probably win. Unfortunately, we had the training accident. I was pretty set there. I did kind of look a little bit at the one Johnny's Fireball, who did run in that Dilberto Memorial. That 2 Emmys won, finished 3rd or 4th in that race by 2.25 lengths. But I don't know what happened. I think the horse just got put out really wide and was just, was 9th by 5.5 lengths. And if you kind of look back at some of the other races where the horse has been successful, the horse has not been that far back. I think this is the horse that wants to be, a little bit more forwardly placed. And, the jock change kind of stood out to me a little bit because, when you think of Ricardo Santana Jr., you don't think of somebody who's going to let the horse relax out of the gate and, kind of sit back. He'll run a pressing trip, but he's not going to let his horse, be out, 5-6 lengths out of it. So, that was one that I kind of looked at briefly and was like, maybe if this one kind of gets back to what he was running, maybe like that race 3 back at Keeneland where he was, up on the pace and only had to close in for that 1.5 lengths, as opposed to kind of being, 5.5 off of it at first call. And at the stretch was 6 lengths off still. Like, I mean, just basically was given no chance to even get into it. So I thought he was a little bit interesting. But other than that, yeah, I think I'm just going to stick here with the 3 strong quality. But let's move on here to race 13 here, the Rachel Alexandra. We're going to be going a mile and the 16th on the dirt. 3-year-old fillies. Historically, a pretty productive race when it starts coming to getting some horses in for the Oaks. Caleb, I don't think you've started one yet, but we have a field of 7 here. Not the biggest of fields that we'll have, but I thought this was an interesting race. So where did you kind of land here?
So this is going to be the race that I that I kind of use as my I guess my separator, so to speak, because I'm going to be single A to the 4-horse Intricate in this field, who I would expect to probably be 4th pick in this race, 3rd to 4th pick maybe. You kind of figure all of the Brad Cox horses are going to take money, and then depending what they do with the Asmussen and the McPeak runners, this horse could easily get totally lost on the board. And I just was really impressed with that last race by Intricate. A very professional race, being able to rate from the inside. Not something that a lot of young horses can do. I mean, did that as a 2-year-old in a stakes race. As a maiden facing winners, was able to rate inside of speed and then, split horses, tip out, and just power away really impressively. That goldenrod came back pretty fast on Brisnet and Time Form. And that was in November of her 2-year-old season. As a 3-year-old now in February, I mean, projecting reasonable improvement, assuming she came out of that race okay. I think she's a huge player. And at first blush, one might be tempted to think that race sort of jumped up out of nowhere. But I do also tend to think that Keeneland race was probably a little better than what some of the figure makers gave it, simply because she closed off of a really slow pace. I mean, Keeneland's a quick track. They went 50-1 to the half, going a mile and a 16th. And she was able to come from 6th off the pace to win by 3. So I just thought that was a really impressive race that probably could have used maybe some pace adjustment to change that fig a little more than what Time Form did. It's a little more decent on Brisnet. But nevertheless, I thought that was 2 very impressive races by Intricate. Has the versatility to be forward, although I can't imagine that she'll be on the lead. And a lot of the other players in here that are going to take money, I think have a lot of questions to answer. I either haven't been out for a long time or coming off of poor races. I guess Alpine Princess is probably the most reliable horse, if you can say such a thing, given her last 2 efforts. But even she's thrown a couple of stinkers, as we saw on the Alcibiades. So for me, I'm going to be going mostly through Intricate, trying to separate myself from some of the, from the others that are going to lean on the more likely to be more fancied horses in this race.
Caleb, if the wise guy angle is a thing, we are both in the same top choice in this race. So I'm sorry to tell you that those odds you're hoping to get
just forget what I said. Just forget it.
Might not be, good there. No, I liked Intricate in here, coming off, come off the I think second longest layoff in the group. But a lot of times 2 to 3 years old is a big improvement angle, and we haven't seen her. I mean, again, end of November, it's not that long, but she's been turned out. Looks like she's been working real well for this. And I think Brendan Walsh is again a bit of an underrated trainer. And I don't really know how the board handles this race. I mean, you have 3 Cox horses in here, which is normally something that really triggers Caleb, but I'm a little disappointed we didn't get a rant for, one trainer having all the horses in here. But, I thought Intricate made a lot of sense. But again, this is a race where I think there's a lot of interesting ways to go. And I really don't know, I guess I'm assuming that Tarifa probably ends up being your favorite, but I don't really know if the top, say, Tarifa, Intricate, and West Oklahoma are that far apart on the board when the gates pop. I did have one other that I think ends up a price, but I'll let Josh talk for a bit because I don't have anything crazy creative to say on the ones I think will be shorter priced.
Yeah, unfortunately for you guys, Intricate was probably my top choice in this race. So, I mean, I think we all kind of saw this race pretty the same. But I will say that, I think there's going to be a price here that is going to be worth looking at, and that's going to be the 2 Pennick.
Yep.
Stretching out here, is went 4.5 on the all weather early in the 2-year-old season. Was laid up for a bit after that win, and came back here to the Fairgrounds going 5.5, and won pretty impressively there. Kind of with a little baby Z pattern there for Caleb, and is going to be stretching out here, and I think maybe might be a little bit of an ask. We'll see. Top end, I don't think distance will be a problem with hard spun, but bottom end looks to be a little bit shorter. But we'll see. But I just think that that this is going to be your pace out of the gate. Is inside drawn. Is got sprinter speed. And this was, and Mark can attest to this. I was looking at this race, and as soon as I started looking at this race, and like my eyes went to this horse, I was like, Mark, I got to see the time form. I got to see something else. Like, is this figure that good? And it looks to match up. I mean, the numbers fit. So, I think Pennick is in here with a shot. I do think Intricate of the other horses is probably your horse to beat here. But I think Pennick's going to be in here with that sprinter speed and could maybe get loose out there. And we all know how Fairgrounds can play sometimes. Sometimes you just get out there on the front and you just go. So I'm going to be 2-4 here and not use anybody else. But Mark, who else were you going to use here?
Pennick was actually the horse I was going to mention because I think you get a bit of a price on Pennick. I think if there's a horse that's going to get a little lost, that's an interesting one. She's won both of her first 2 starts by open lengths, 5.5 and 4.25, and those were both in sprints. Has a pedigree that says she should stretch out. Shearer does fine with that move. And I thought Pennick was a really, really interesting player in this race. Just given the fact that I think the Coxes take a ton of money, the Asmussen horses could take, or I should say, the Asmussen horse could take a bunch of money as well. And I just really wonder if you don't get a really square price on Pennick, who I think could be a major player in here.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add to that. I mean, Pennick is almost certainly going to be the longest price in the field. And I think it's worth a flyer if you think that she can get out front and just keep going. She has a lot of questions to answer. So I would demand, 15 or 20 to 1, but I think you could do worse. Personally, I'm not enamored with some of the horses that I do think will take money. I tend to think the favorite might be Alpine Princess. Off of the strength of those 2 victories, it has some of the better figures in the field. Tarifa's one that I'm not interested in at all. I know she did win her last race, odds on, but she's one that either hasn't improved since that debut race or has actually gone backwards. And that's just not what I like to see. Flaunt Drew gets off Tarifa to ride Alpine Princess. She's one that I really won't have anywhere. Perfect Shot doesn't really do anything for me. Alpine Princess, I think she's usable, but again, I expect her to be the favorite. And then you get to the likes of VV's Dream. You can probably forgive the off-track loss, I guess. If you can never forgive a 10-length loss at 1-5, I don't know. It's one of those things for a barn that's not exactly firing right now. So honestly, my second pick in the race would be West Omaha, simply because I think Sias kind of makes the difference on this horse, and probably is going to get a more aggressive ride in a race that you guys have pointed out doesn't have a ton of speed. So that would be my second pick, but I'm going to be pretty heavy through Intricate, which I may have to be even heavier than I planned, given the fact that she's likely going to be a shorter price than I thought if all 3 of us are on her.
Yeah, I would say I really liked West Omaha in here. She's probably my second choice. But the thing is, I know it doesn't show up as much on Briz, but I know it does on Timeform and BSF, is that she's improved every single race she's run and also improved as she's stretched out. And that's not something you can say for, I don't think, anyone else in this field. Everybody else has been more up and down kind of stuff. Some of these horses have gotten, which is common, they get a little slower figures wise as they stretch out. So, I wonder if, the little bit of added distance in here, plus the fact that she seems to kind of be getting better. I don't know where she ends up. I would think I mean, you could probably make an argument she ends up favorited, but I would imagine second or third choice. So, again, it's not a race where you're gonna have a huge spread first to last, and we're making a case for the longest price on the board as well, most likely longest price. So, interesting race, interesting betting race, and one that I think is tough from if you're playing the pick 4, pick 5 kind of thing, because it feels like if you want to be alive through this race, you either have to do what Caleb's doing and get real aggressive, or you kind of have to somewhat buy it.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add. Yeah, Caleb, like, when you look at it, when you like a horse and I like it too, you're like, all right, well, maybe the odds will go down a little bit, not too much. But when Mark likes it, too, you're like, fuck, this horse is getting like, it's gonna be a quarter of the price.
It's gonna be 8 to 5. Just send it in, forget about it.
Yeah. Greg saying that the bias got to her the day she lost to the Barn Buddy. So I don't know if you
got to who? Who are we talking about? West Omaha lost to Alpine Princess, I assume.
Yeah, I think that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched much racing this year, so I'll take your word for it. There's a chance that happens again, right? It is Fairgrounds.
yeah, definitely, right. Well, we can, they can turn the jets on there at will, but the race 14 here, the Risen Star, mile in the 8th here on the main track. This is the widest I went in this sequence here. I got 2 A's and 2 B's here. I think Steve Asmussen might have this race surrounded with the 2 A's. Track Phantom obviously last time out. Nash kind of started getting some buzz, and they thought that he was going to kind of turn the tables on Track Phantom based off what happened in the Gun Runner, and then Track Phantom just went ahead and beat him by 2 3/4 lengths again. So that might have put the bow on Nash, or maybe Nash is just not going to run against Track Phantom anymore. But I mean, this horse is coming in here off the win for the prep for this race. I do kind of feel like at Fairgrounds, especially, just because you won the prep for it doesn't necessarily set up for the next one. I remember there was a couple of horses, and this might have been the proxy year, where like there were like 3 horses that just took turns beating each other. And maybe proxy finished second in all of those races. But I think that race kind of came back a little bit slower than the Gun Runner did. And I'm kind of curious if maybe Track Phantom kind of ran the best he's going to run right now. And when you look on time form, Track Phantom I think it was like a 110, which is a pretty decent figure for I think this time of year. And you look at the other Asmussen horse, the 7 Hall of Fame. I think he ran a 121, which is like basically running a hole in the wind. For this time, people were talking about that Baffert horse running that humongous figure. I think he ran like a 125 or something. Maybe it was a little bit higher, but I mean, Hall of Fame just absolutely romped in that race, won by 10 lengths. But I don't know. I have a. And maybe this is because we've seen this happen where these horses come out, they run their first race as a 3-year-old, and they just run an absolute humongous figure, and then they never run back to it. Maybe I have a little bit of hesitation because of that, but I think at least as far as A's are concerned, I mean, and those I think are the 2 horses to beat in this spot. And Greg saying Maiden Breakers, but. Right? Maiden Breakers, like you're like, are they gonna run back to that number? But then you also think, well, maybe they're gonna improve off this number. And I don't know. Hall of Fame, I think. Makes a ton of sense. I mean, obviously, 1.4 million purchase by Gun Runner. This is just Yeah, it just an absolute monster effort last time out. So I got two other Bs that I'm going to use in here as well, but I'll let you guys talk. Mark, where did you kind of go?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you believe that last figure on Hall of Fame, then he's a single and you move on, right? Like, I mean, he just that figure is huge. My concern is, and I'm sure it's going to be the same concern Caleb has, is Maiden Breaker last out, first time versus winners is a terrible angle to take on a short priced horse. You're asking him to do something he's never done before. Yeah, it was a blowout win. Yeah, it looks super impressive and everything else. But I think I just don't sort of trust it. And if I was really being cute in here, I would probably toss him. I want to go. I want to go to other horses. I know you talk Track Phantom. I think Track Phantom makes a ton of sense, but I think the horse I'm most interested in this field is Catching Freedom, the 8 horse for Brad Cox, a horse that has 3 starts. Has 2 wins. It had a bit of excuse in that 2-back race. And Brad has played this game where he ships these Oaklawn winners last out down to Fairgrounds. They get forgotten on the board, and then they win it 8-1 or something. And you're like, oh, that horse made all the sense in the world. Why was I tossing him? Because Brad shipped him to a different track, which I think that happened last year, year before, something like that. And I think Catching Freedom has improved 3 races in a row. Has every right to take another step forward here. And you're getting all the connections at what may not be a terrible price. You might get, I don't know, 6-1 on him or something along those lines. Is probably your 4th or 5th choice in this race. So I think somebody like Catching Freedom to me, Josh had mentioned the other 2 that I had up on top. So I thought Catching Freedom was really interesting in this field. Had a couple other prices, but I'll let Caleb talk because he's way more eloquent than I am.
No, I mean, I think you guys both bring up some really interesting horses. To kind of piggyback off of Mark's comments, I do like Catching Freedom. That is a horse that I have as an A for a lot of the reasons Mark talked about. To kind of piggyback off something Mark said earlier, I am going to get cute in this race, which I know will come as a shock to all of our regular viewers. And I'm going to throw out both of Josh's A's, the 7 and the 11. Josh kind of made a point earlier, which I agree with, which is sort of the foundation for why I'm throwing out Track Phantom, is that I think we've sort of seen the best he has to offer. And yeah, if everybody in here runs their B race and Track Phantom comes with what he's already shown, maybe that's good enough. But I'm just really not convinced. I don't think that he's going to take a step forward in here. And I think he's been relatively heavily campaigned for a horse on the Derby Trail. So for me, I think he's probably a little over the top here for a young horse with 6 starts already since October. So he's one that I don't really need. I'm much more afraid of Hall of Fame number 7 because he could really be any kind in this field. But there's just too many questions. That last race was enormous, but it's really hard to validate that fig. There really haven't been any runbacks. These blowout wins are always kind of difficult to make sense out of. Did he freak because it was second career start? Was it the stretch out, the 2 turns? Was it the Lasix? I don't know. And if I don't know, I have a hard time taking 5-2 on a horse because there's just so many things that, that could go wrong for a horse like this. He's had 3 different jockeys and 3 career starts now. So a lot of things I just don't feel comfortable with about Hall of Fame, but he is the one that scares me the most for sure. With all that being said, the horses that I kind of landed, I had 3 horses that I kind of treated similarly, one of which Mark already discussed, which was the 8. The other 2 that I liked were the numbers 3 and 4. So we'll start with number 3, Honor Marie. This is a horse that has 2 wins from 3 starts and is, in all likelihood, probably overachieved relative to what the expectations were when they bought this horse for $40,000 in 2022. But came in with a nice maiden win at Churchill, ran a decent second last time, 2-back, and then came out to actually upset the Kentucky Jockey Club at 8-1. This is a 1-run closer, which is not easy to do at the Fairgrounds, but it does feel like with the Risen Stars specifically, it tends to draw oversubscribed fields with a lot of horses that really need to, use some horse early to secure position. I think this is one that's going to want to run all day, and it may not get a nuclear pace to chase after, but I think should have an honest enough pace to set up the late run, if he is in fact good enough. So that's one that I think is pretty interesting in here. The other horse I mentioned was Sierra Leone. This was a horse that I initially wasn't that high about, given the kind of quirky running line last time. I watched that Remsen replay back, and this horse was actually probably a half a length ahead of Dornoch, the horse who ultimately beat him. It looked like he was going to just blow by. And then I'm not, to me, it looked like he hit the front, didn't see any other horses, and just kind of quit running, lost focus. That happens with these young horses pretty frequently. So I think the blinkers going on really makes sense for a horse like this, because I do think he should have won the Remsen last out. That was going a mile and an eighth, so I really don't think the distance is a question. So for me, that was also a day at Aqueduct when you had a lot of wire-to-wire winners. Speed was good that day. Timeform has the race coded as dark red for heavy speed bias, and that seems to check out if you go and look at the charts for that day. So I just thought that was probably a better race than it looked. I like the blinkers going on. Clearly expectations were there when they sold this horse for over $2 million to Coolmore and Friends. So that's the other horse who I think will be more forward. I don't expect this horse to be last by 12 lengths in a field like this. And with a more tactful trip and maybe a little more professionalism, I could see Sierra Leone getting it done.
Yeah, Caleb actually mentioned two of the price horses that I liked, which is kind of interesting. For the same, yeah, I know he's picking all the me horses out here. Oh, Josh is.
Yeah, those
okay?
are my two B's, were the last two horses he talked about. So the fact that we basically saw this race almost exactly the same is kind of scary.
Okay. The one other horse I did want to talk about that Caleb didn't mention is the 9 horse Cardinal, I guess you would call it. I think is how you would say it. I realize it's, a Speightstown, and Speightstowns aren't supposed to be able to go this far, but apparently this one can. And this is a horse that's got some speed, as you'd expect. Stone Street homebred. And a horse that broke maiden at first ask, first time stretching out. Oftentimes the horses need a second time going long. Figure came back pretty darn good in that losing effort last out. And I think this one has every chance to take a step forward again. It's Todd just kind of spreading out his his Derby stock, and I know he was a little loaded for 2-year-olds at this past year. So I wonder if this is another one of those ones that obviously lightly raced and has every reason to take a step forward. Flavian Pratt ships in for the mount, or well, I mean I know he was here for other mounts as well. Seems to be training really well, and this is another one that I think you're going to get a real square price on. I don't know what that square price looks like, but it would not be a shocker for me at all if this one, is there when the smoke clears. And again, we talk about the Fairgrounds being somewhat speed favoring. A horse that's going to sit that nice stalking trip and is shown that he can sit that stalking trip and pass other horses. So I thought Cardinal the 9 was also an interesting player in here.
Yeah, I looked at that horse for a while, Mark, because I wasn't really sure what to think of him.
Yeah.
And he's also maybe one of the other horses that could get involved on the front, perhaps. What ended up turning me off a little bit was the horse he lost to in that optional 675 at Gulfstream, change of command. That horse went on to run in the Tampa Derby or the Sam F. Davis last week, and it went off at like 3-1 or 7-2, and I think ran last, or just a very poor performance. So that's not necessarily reason in and of itself to say Cardinal can't win this race. But for a horse that I was on the fence about, that kind of pushed me the other direction. But it's certainly a horse that probably has some ability. And to your earlier point, I do think that Todd has, at least historically, a pretty strong record of doing well at the Fairgrounds on their big days. I don't know if that's changed in recent years or not, but I know historically he's done well.
He's 22% in stakes races at the Fairgrounds over the last 5 years. And basically the two main Fairground stakes days are the only 2 days he ships horses in for. So, he's historically done pretty darn well.
Yeah, I have nothing to add since you guys took all my horses.
I got one more.
You got one more?
I have one more as well. And I have a feeling Caleb's going for the same horse I am.
You go first then.
Okay. Yeah, this was kind of a weird one, but I had a feeling this one would probably be, a big price. And I know Caleb liked Honor Marie, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I did.
So if you like Honor Marie, don't you have to like Real Men Violin, the Ken McPeak course in here? I know this one took forever to break his maiden, but and seemed to maybe have a case of the hangs. But horse that ran just almost got it done in the Jockey Club. And if you're gonna say that figure for Honor Marie is legit, kind of he's gonna be probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 times the price, I would imagine. Isn't there, some value there in a horse like that could still have some more upside, and we haven't seen since November?
Yeah, not the one I was going to talk about. Not a horse I have any problem with, but also sort of a horse that I think I'm just kind of okay if it beats me.
Okay. Also has beaten Track Phantom.
Has beaten Track Phantom. That's true. The horse I was going to mention actually is the number 5, Moonlight. And this feels like the fakest of all Todd Pletcher horses. I get that. It debuted on turf. It broke its maiden in an off the turf event, and that's the only win it has. Like, I get that. The only reason I'm even, considering this horse is I'm just wondering that, maybe say what you will about pedigree or whatever else. Maybe the horse is just better on a fast track, because the one race that he's had on a fast track is the best race of his career, a blowout win by 8 lengths. I don't know what was behind him that day. Off the turf races generally are kind of full of turf horses that didn't scratch, but really aren't meant for that surface. But regardless of who he beat, the figure came back pretty strong. It was the best figure of his career on pretty much all metrics. And then he came back and he ran fine over muddy sealed tracks and sloppy sealed tracks. In the next 2 stakes races he tackled, but it wasn't as good as his fast track. So I'm just wondering, maybe he's better over a fast track. I'm looking at Bresnet pedigree stats, which aren't always updated or super updated, but I'm seeing that Audible's offspring have 33 mud starts and only 1 winner on the mud for a win percent in the mud of 3%. If you look at Into Mischief and Tap It, you would think they'd be better than that. It's a small sample size, so I'm not concluding anything definitively. But I'm just wondering, with a horse like this, is he just better on a fast track? And if he gets back to a fast track today, can he turn the tables? And at what I assume will be generous price, he's one that I might throw on a couple of tickets.
I had him marked down as well, Caleb. It's somewhat interesting, but he's probably a C type. He kind of screams fake Todd, but he's one that will definitely spice up a ticket if he wins at a pretty probably, you're probably going to get 25 to 1 on him or something crazy like that.
Yeah, I don't know what he'll be, but I would expect it to be at least 15 to 1.
Yeah.
Anything else to talk about in this race? Everyone did their homework this week? Like, we actually got through this probably in a record time.
An hour for 5 races with big
for us, that is shocking.
Yeah, that's just absolutely insane. I'm actually just I'm impressed that we were able to get through those races that fast. But I don't know, anything else that you're looking at this weekend, Mark? Anything that you're interested in it?
No, I mean it's President's Weekend, and I will the beginning of President's Week, and I will be very busy skiing. I haven't really taken too much of a look at anything else. I'll definitely be playing Dubai on Friday. They've been doing some really good Friday cards, having a lot of fun dabbling with those. And but again, I'm going to be light for the next till NHC. I'll be fairly light. And this time of year is kind of rest and recover and get yourself back ready for the fun summer stuff. Except for the fact that I couldn't get my Saratoga at Belmont or Belmont at Saratoga, wherever the hell they're calling it, tickets, which pissed me off.
Greg already shouting out to Hong Kong, which I know is running tomorrow. They normally run Wednesday mornings, but they run Thursday morning this week. So
let me guess, you know a guy who's going to have a stream out about that.
Well, I know a guy who does a podcast every week talking about Hong Kong, but we do shots in mostly. Yeah. What about you, Caleb? You around this weekend? You gonna be gambling, or are you gonna be just, I don't know, gallivanting across Boston doing what you do normally?
Yeah, I'll be probably wrapped up this weekend, so I probably won't be betting much, but I'll be checking the results, and I might throw a ticket in and kind of check it as I'm out, but I won't be around a whole lot.
You'll be tied up with some Legos.
That's right.
Of Road Warrior. I knew as soon as you mentioned it, I knew Road Warrior would have some of these. He canceled his reservations.
I was waiting for him to comment about that.
Yeah.
It was so bad. If anybody's unaware, they were doing this sort of pre-entry thing where apparently anybody who had previously had season tickets with a real any season ticket at either Belmont or Saratoga got preferential treatment. So then they did the pre-sale, and it was supposed to open at 10 a.m. this morning, but the Ticketmaster blurb that they sent out said it opened 10 a.m. yesterday. And then one of my coworkers got on at 9:45, and the tickets were open, and you could purchase them at 9:45. So it was Naira specialed on multiple levels, and by the time I got logged in and looking, there was nothing available, and I'm a little pissed.
Yeah, I saw some people got hit with a ad in the middle of the email that they sent out that had like a continue button on it. And so they continued into it and entered credit card information. And that wasn't, it was like for some service that the ad was like pointed to, not continue to purchase your tickets. So I saw a couple people, it was on Twitter, some people are going to be doing some chargebacks on that. So Greg's asking about Dubai, the racing there. Is it big races or is it more maiden races? What do they got going on?
I haven't looked at the card for Friday. Normally this time of year, Dubai doesn't run a lot of maidens at all. They may have one a month. They don't. That's not really their thing. But you're starting to get into Dubai World Cup preps now. So some of the final preps for that, because that's about a little over a month out, I think. And yeah, there's always some big money stakes. There's stakes that you look at and you're like, oh, this is like a G3 caliber field, except for it's got a $5 million purse. There's a lot of that stuff in Dubai, which is pretty cool. Big money races, and I think the racing product is really good. It's a fun product to bet, and the nice thing about it is if you have any sort of, like somebody like Caleb or myself who follow European racing, you look at a place like Dubai and you realize how bad Americans are at pricing European horses running. It's there are overlays to be found in abundance.
Just shenanigans going on in private chat. Jesus. Road Warrior saying he's gonna make it a Lake George weekend. He's gonna go to the track on Sunday instead. So, Greg saying he loves Dubai. Is just low level last week. Greg, you and Mark would get along because Mark loves Dubai, and he hates everything about human rights. Oh no, that's Saudi Arabia more. I mean, Dubai's not great, but
it's not great. But yeah, right. Like, yeah.
But yeah, that's gonna do it for us. We're gonna wrap up a little bit early, so maybe we'll sneak a game of League of Legends in before Caleb's got to study for class or something. But check us out at ontherwronglead.com, at wrong_lead. Mark is at 2 turns. Caleb's at CalebWVU. I am at Cherry Drank. We will have an episode of Drank and Champagne sometime out. I think Friday evening, Saturday morning will be out, as well as another episode of You Gotta Be Shot Tinning Me, where we'll cover the late pick 3 at Shot Tin and talk about just random stuff like brewing beer and probably hockey video games this week because I know I've been playing a lot of NHL. So, until next week, good luck, everybody. Let's make some money, and just remember, don't use any defensive bees.
$12! Let's go! Where's the fucking line? Come on! Yes! Yes!